Okay, so I actually like this little guy here. So this is the Fiido D3 Pro Mini electric bike. And right now, this is the most compact electric bike that I have that I actually would use out in the real world outside of this review. And that's because this thing weighs, I think 38.6 pounds. So it's very lightweight, as you can see. So this thing weighs pretty much next to nothing compared to most e-bikes. So you can carry this upstairs very easily. And I really like the fact that technically this isn't a foldable bike, but you can still make it super compact by lowering the seat post, and on the bottom of the seat post you do have a little protective piece there to keep it from scraping on the ground and stuff. Then you can lower and fold down the handlebars, and then also the pedals. The pedals do also fold as well. So these three things combined allow you to really make this thing super small, to make it easy to throw it into your trunk or to take it upstairs in your apartment or your office, or just to bring it into your home. So I really like that. So again, it weighs a little bit over 38 pounds, and that's because of this aluminum alloy frame. But I will have to say that this thing does feel very sturdy when you are riding it or just moving it around. But one thing you should know is that most of the cables are going to be external, so not internally routed. But they're very nicely, kind of put together and tied down. Just make sure you're careful when you're grabbing onto the bike, especially if you are grabbing onto the cables. Now let's get real for a second. When you have a bike of this size, it is kind of small, so you might be concerned on how it looks when you are riding. So I'm about 6 feet tall and I weigh about 220 pounds, but I think I look okay on it. I think this is definitely the smallest that I would want to go when it comes to a bike without looking too weird, but I think it works for me. And the company does say that this bike is rated to handle riders between 5 feet and 6.5 feet tall. And as far as the overall weight, this thing can handle up to 265 pounds. So it is pretty generous for a bike of this size. And this bike doesn't come with a rear rack, but it does look like you do have some mounting points here on the back of this bike where you could mount some. I'm not too sure, but maybe that will be an option for you if you do want to carry more weight. But yeah, let's dig into the design a little bit more. So this bike does come in two colors. You have the black like I have here, but then also you have a white option to choose from. And it also does come with front and rear fenders, which is nice. And then up top on the handlebars, you will find some decent grips, not the most comfortable, but they're okay. And then also on the right hand side, you will find a twist throttle to be able to use the motor. You can also use pedal assist, and we'll talk more about that here in a second. And then on the left hand side of the handlebars, you will find the controls for the headlight, which is passable. It's just okay. If you do want more illumination, you definitely want to go third party with that. But also below that, you will find the button for the electronic horn. And then to the right of that, you will find the display, but just like my other Fiido T1 cargo bike that I reviewed a little bit earlier this year, the display is just fine when it comes to using it out in the daytime, but I do want to see it be brighter. So hopefully they can start using a different brand of display that's just going to be a little bit more brighter in direct sunlight. But the display is very basic as far as the information. It will tell you your speed and also your battery information, and you can cycle through your different levels of pedal assist. But a good thing about the display is that it does have a USB Type A port on the bottom of it, so you can quickly charge your phone if you need to. And oh, this bike does not have an integrated tail light, but it does come with this removable one. So when you do need to charge it, because it has its own built-in battery, you just untwist it and then you take it inside and it charges via USB-C. Now for me, mine did not work out of the box, so I was kind of unfortunate with that. But I did contact the company and they are sending me a free replacement, which is nice. So the customer service was pretty spot on, because sometimes things don't always work out, but they did respond pretty quickly with my issue. And all right, so now let's talk about the battery. So the battery on this bike is not removable. And when I say that, I mean that it doesn't come with any keys to easily remove the battery to take it inside. So if you do need to remove it and replace it for any reason, as far as like, maintenance and stuff, you can do it by, undoing some screws and stuff, but it's gonna take a little bit of work. Oh, and don't be fooled by this casing underneath the seat. I thought it was the battery, but it's actually the housing for the controllers for this bike. But the specs for the battery include it being 36 volt at 7.8 amp hours, and it's 280 watt hours, and it's rated to get you up to 37.2 miles with pedal assist, and that is according to the company. So for me, I'm definitely getting maybe around like the mid 20s to the upper 20s, depending on what type of terrain that I'm riding on. So this definitely isn't a range champion at all, but when you look at it, you don't expect it to be. But also the battery itself will take you up to 5 hours to fully charge, so just be aware of that. All right, so now let's talk about how it is to ride this bad boy. So right now, to start off, I almost dipped it there. I'm just gonna be using the twist throttle, which is actually a decent acceleration there, which I do like. But if you wanna get that maximum range, you do need to use that pedal assist. And this bike does have 3 levels of pedal assist here. And I'm gonna go ahead and start pedaling now. Now it does take like 2.5 rotations before the motor kicks in after I start pedaling, so it's a little bit slow. as far as that response time. But once it does kick in, it's actually pretty decent. And you might be able to hear the motor a little bit here. It's not super loud, but you hear the humming just a tad. And this bike does have a 250 watt motor, so nothing to scream home as far as like, you know, a bunch of power and stuff. But what this bike does have is a really good capability of being able to get up, you know, decent sized hills, especially if they are a little bit longer. Nothing really steep, right? This is definitely not made for a lot of San Francisco type of hill climbing. But decent hills, you should be fine with putting in a little bit of work with your pedaling. Oh, and you might be wondering how my knees fare on a bike of this size. So I am 6 feet tall. And so sometimes when I'm going uphill, my right knee does touch my right hand at times. So it's not all the time, but that can be a little bit annoying. So if you are taller than me, you know, you're talking about like, you know, 6'1", 6'2", and above, you might have some issues with the bike. I can't confirm for sure because I'm not that tall, but that's one thing you should be aware of. Now, also this bike doesn't have any suspension, so no front, no rear. So be a little bit aware of that when you are going over rough terrain. This is more for, you know, that leisurely city riding, paved bike trails. Definitely you don't want to do any off-roading on this. The tires are kind of small. I don't know the exact size. I don't remember, but they're small. So, but the tires seem to be a little bit durable, so they shouldn't be super flat prone, knock on wood. But yeah, the tires definitely are just made for, you know, flat land. And oh, for the seat is wide enough for me. I do find that the cushion is a little lacking, but it's not the worst that I've used, right? So it's definitely fine for short trips, but if I do plan on using this for longer trips on a more consistent basis, I might swap out that seat. But for what it is as a stock e-bike seat, I'm not too mad at it. Oh, and as far as the top speed, the company says that this bike is rated to get you around 16 miles per hour. Now for me, I've been able to get up to around like 18 miles per hour when I am pedaling pretty hard. So again, it's decent for a 250 watt motor. And for what you're trying to expect for something like this, you're not going to be winning any races at this speed, but it's fast enough to when I am like, you know, riding around the city like this. I don't really feel like I'm, you know, going too slow, but definitely I'm not going to be riding this, you know, in the street that often, but definitely, you know, in those bike paths, in those bike lanes and stuff, this speed is going to be decent for most people. Okay, so I'm about to wrap up here, but one thing I didn't notice here is that the kickstand is a little short. Now it's fine when you are on, you know, flat terrain and stuff, but if you are in like deep grass or something or very soft, you know, ground, you might find that the bike will tip over, so be aware of that. And also the kickstand, when it is stored in its up position, is very close to the rotors on the rear wheel. So that means when I do use my foot to put down the kickstand, sometimes I do hit that rotor, which you just don't want that to happen. And so yeah, with that and also the display not being as bright as I want it to be, everything else about this bike really does scream a very good contender for a first-time e-bike purchaser or buyer or whatever you want to call yourself, because of the price point. Because right now I think it is on sale for $599, but the normal price is $699. And for what you're getting with the build quality and also the performance, which is decent for what you're trying to do with a bike of this size, I think it's a great value to actually performance ratio that you have here. And I also think this is going to be a great e-bike for kids or people who are just, you know, smaller in nature, where you want something that's going to be a little bit more manageable. But for me, I'm really going to use this as like my road trip e-bike, because I can load this up in my SUV and it's not going to take up that much space, and I can easily just whip this thing out, unfold it, all that stuff as far as the handlebars and lifting up the seat, and then I can go ahead and start exploring a new city or just a new, you know, type of biking trail or something. So yeah, I really like this thing. So as far as like a compact e-bike, I think this is a great value. So I'll drop a link down below to this Fiido D3 Pro mini bike, and let me know what you think about this bike by leaving a comment down below, and hit that subscribe button and that like button if you like this video. And like always, I do want to thank you for watching, and I will catch you later. Peace. This time I would take the bike with me.